Welcome into the Logan Ward Show, episode 3, already on deck. Got a lot to talk about today. We're actually in that dead period of sports, but we have a lot of NBA topics to talk about. The NBA has come up clutch here in the last couple of weeks with storylines that they keep putting out. So we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA. We'll talk a little bit about College Baseball World Series, which the final game, Game 3, is tonight. So we'll talk about those, a couple of NBA storylines coming up here on the show. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Logan Ward Show. Do that. Greatly appreciate that. So be sure to subscribe there. Let's get into it. All right, so there are a couple of trades in the NBA that I think need to be discussed and talked about here on the show. So we're going to do two of those trades that are that happened. We're going to talk, first off, let's talk CP3 and the Warriors. I find this very interesting that the NBA's new CBA is going to be coming out in the next couple of days. And I don't remember the exact date of when the new CBA starts for the NBA, but it is soon. And there are some new guidelines and new consequences for teams over the salary cap and that are in that luxury cap. And one of the big things is what they're calling the second apron. And you can do a lot more research about the second apron. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am a person who knows all about the NBA's financials or the contracts. The NBA is really progressive in a lot of ways, but the way that they go about their finances and like mid-level exceptions and veteran minimums and bird rights and all of these different things is really confusing to most of us, I think. And so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know everything about the NBA's collective bargaining agreement that is going to be in effect here in the next couple of weeks. But I did do a little bit of digging and some research on this second apron situation because I've heard about it recently, and some people were talking about it in terms of what the Warriors were doing, and I find it really intriguing and something that I think these teams are actually going to need to look at, and so I'll explain what that is. So the second apron is another tier if you go over the salary cap. So right now the salary cap is set, and you have teams that can go over the cap, but they just have to pay what they call a luxury tax. So you can have Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton all on these big contracts, but there are some repercussions to having players and reaching over that salary cap and having to pay this luxury tax. Now you get a tax on your team. The owner and the team have to pay this tax, and that money goes back to the other team. So obviously it's going to help other teams in the league if one team is over the luxury cap. There are two teams going into this offseason that were over what they call the second apron now. So the second apron is if you have exceeded the luxury tax to a certain extent, you are now in the second apron. And I think that the second apron, it was $192 million for this upcoming season. So if you're at that spot, you are considered in the second apron. There are only two teams that were in the second apron as of this offseason: the LA Clippers and the Golden State Warriors. And so last year, the Golden State Warriors signed Jordan Poole to a 4-year deal worth north of $100 million, and they were paying him quite a bit of money for the next couple of years. So they ship him off to Washington. What I find interesting, though, is because Chris Paul is making like $30 million, and I'm not sure if the Wizards are doing a buy. I'm not sure if they're paying a portion of the salary. I don't know if the Suns are going to pay the portion of the salary that Chris Paul is supposed to have next season. I'm not sure about that. But what's interesting is that they shipped Jordan Poole off and said, you know what, Draymond Green, we're going to work with you, and we want you back. We're shipping Jordan Poole off to let you know that we want you back. But they trade him for Chris Paul, who Draymond Green has come out and said, not a huge fan of the guy. Don't like him. Think he's really smart, has a really high basketball IQ, but I don't like the guy. And so is this Warriors team going to bring back Draymond? Because if Draymond is a very smart person, he understands that this is the last year and the last opportunity for him to get paid. And I don't know if that's really important to Draymond. He does seem like he wants to be a Warrior, but the NBA and the NFL and all these professional sports leagues, you only have a finite amount of time in these leagues. And so you try to make as much money as you possibly can before you are forced to retire and leave the game. Now, Draymond was due $27 million, a player option, for next season. He declined it because he wants to get more than that $27 million. He wants some team to overpay for him, and it might be the Warriors. Now, we'll see. I don't know the inner workings of Draymond Green. I don't know if he's going to try to take a discount so they can try to win another championship and get 5. I'm not sure if that's the case. I think it will be very telling what Draymond Green thinks of this Warriors group if he re-signs with the Warriors for a discount or he goes somewhere else. If he goes and signs somewhere else, he is telling the rest of the league that this Warriors team he does not think can win a championship. Because unless he's just chasing the bag, he says he wants to win rings. If he goes and signs somewhere else for a smaller deal, if he signs with the Lakers, he thinks that the Lakers have a better opportunity to win and to beat the Nuggets next year in the Western Conference over the Warriors. So I think the Warriors in the next couple of months will be a top team to keep an eye out on because they are a team that can make some moves, and it's going to be really fascinating to see what Draymond Green does with this Chris Paul to the Warriors trade. Now, let me get back to CP3 actually playing on this team. I understand the logic. I understand that you are trying to get someone to spell Steph Curry some minutes. I understand that you are trying to have someone who can lead the unit, who's an adult, because Jordan Poole clearly wasn't, and provide that kind of leadership in the second unit. Where I don't understand is that Chris Paul is completely different type of player that this Warriors team has wanted during this entire run. The only other player that has played like Chris Paul, and not even really, we're just talking mid-range jumpers, Sean Livingston. 2015, Sean Livingston had a really big year, especially in the postseason in Golden State. The difference is Sean Livingston has some height, and he was able to play defense and rise above some players in the mid-range game. They didn't have Sean Livingston for that long. So in this Warriors run, you've had Steph, Clay, Draymond. Those have been the constants. You had Kevin Durant, who is a bigger player. He likes the mid-range game, but he also is a really good three-point shooter and great defensively. You had Jordan Poole, who, despite his issues, he could still hit a really long three, could handle the ball, run the offense. He was a liability defensively, and that's why a lot of the times late in playoff games, they had to get Jordan Poole off the court because defensively people were kind of going at him. So CP3's fit in the Warriors doesn't quite make sense to me. He's a guy that needs to have the ball in his hands to be the most effective, and this is an offense that a lot of the times the ball does not stay in anybody's hand. It's been quick passing, and if there is someone who has the ball in their hands, it's Steph Curry. Now, again, this could be a situation where as soon as Steph goes and sits down and, takes a 5-minute breather, that Chris Paul can come in and kind of lead that second unit. But Chris Paul's not a three-point shooter like Steph Curry. And Chris Paul's not a three-point shooter and a dynamic player like Jordan Poole. So I don't know where CP3 fits in this. I understand the logic for the Warriors. I just don't see the fit. And if you're not going to bring back Draymond, or if you are going to bring back Draymond, is another player who excels setting screens and then also playing with the ball in his hands. When Draymond is distributing and running the offense and the offense kind of goes through him, maybe he's not the one hitting the jumpers, but the offense kind of runs through him and what he decides to do with the ball and go where and set screens. That's when Draymond's most effective. And I think that could kind of eat into what Chris Paul does the best. So I'm not sure what this looks like in Golden State. And it feels a little desperate to me. I know you try to get off Jordan Poole's contract, but this seems a little desperate trying to bring in Chris Paul. All right. Second big trade of the NBA offseason so far has been Kristaps Porzingis to Boston. Boston is sending Marcus Smart to the Memphis Grizzlies. And Tyus Jones is going to Washington. I think that you get to a certain point in life, in a relationship, in a friend group, in a work environment, that you feel like you need some change. Whether this is you've been working with the same group, you're a high school teacher, and you've been working in the same building, in the same classroom, with the same admin, and same coworkers for 8 years. And you know what? You feel like you need a little bit of a change. You feel like you've gotten stale. You've gotten stagnant. You make a move to a school down the road. This could be, in a relationship. You need some change. You've been you've been doing this for so long, you've been dating, and you need some change. You maybe want to move in together. Maybe you need to break up. Whatever it may be, I think there comes a point in any relationship that you need some change. And this is Boston saying, this group has been really good together with Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum, but we need a little bit of change. And I think this change is really big because everyone knows that Marcus Smart is the lifeline, the team leader in that Celtics locker room. And this is going to force Jason Tatum to have to be the leader. You are now the best guy. You are now one of the longest tenured Celtics because Marcus Smart was the longest tenured Celtic on that team last season. And it is on you now to be a leader and to set the tone for this team. I think that's going to be good for Jason Tatum. And I think it's going to be good for this Boston Celtics team. Now, what did they get in Kristaps Porzingis? I think this is perfect for what Joe Mazzulla wants to do. You can tell Joe Mazzulla wants to hit threes. In the series against the 76ers, there were times where you're thinking, why are you still shooting threes? You don't have it tonight. And they kept firing away. This is very much Houston Rockets of 2018, 2019. It's like, what did the Rockets miss? 22 straight threes against the Warriors in the playoffs. And you're like, yeah, they live by the three and they die by the three. This is what they do. This is what the Boston Celtics do. They live with the three and they die by the three. And what you are getting with Kristaps Porzingis is a 6'3" shooter who just had the best season of his career, had 23 points a game, had his highest numbers in field goal percentage, three-point percentage in his career. And I think you are getting a guy that understands he is not going to be the number one or the number two option. But I do think that Kristaps Porzingis could be a number 3 on a championship-winning team. He could be a Kevin Love. He could be a Chris Bosh. I do think that Kristaps Porzingis is good enough for that, to be a 3 on a championship team. He's going to come in. His numbers are going to dip. He's going to average, 16 a game instead of 23. But I think that Kristaps Porzingis and his ability to shoot the 3 from the outside will pull some of these defenders out of the paint. They can go 5 out in Boston, and jack up a bunch of threes if they want, or they can go 5 out and just drive to the lane and have somebody help. Because if you look at the teams in the East that you are going to have to compete against, you look at the 76ers. Joel Embiid is comfortable enough on the perimeter, but I don't know if he's comfortable enough on the perimeter defensively. And he's going to have to take Porzingis out there. The same thing with Giannis. Giannis is an incredible defender when he's around the rim, and he can wreak havoc, blocking shots, changing directions, making players kick it out on the drive. And if you're having to guard Kristaps, even if you're just going to have to be in the space, that opens up the lane. And I think that this is a big win for the Boston Celtics. The Celtics already have guards. No, they don't have a defensive stopper like Marcus Smart, but they already have guards. They don't need any more. You already have Derek White and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Peyton Pritchard. You don't need any more guards. What you do need is someone to spell Al Horford. And you need someone to spell Robert Williams. Especially in the postseason when the bench and the rotation shrinks. I think Porzingis, although he has had injury issues, is going to be great for this Boston Celtics team. This allows Boston to play bigger. This allows Boston to have three-point shooters all over the field and all over the court. And I think Boston is a better team today than they were 2 months ago when they lost to the Miami Heat. All right, finally, I want to talk about the College World Series that's tonight. Game 3, final game of the College World Series tonight on ESPN, LSU, and Florida. If you know me, you know I'm not the biggest baseball fan in the world. I feel like I've actually as I've gotten older, have enjoyed it more, but I think that's more of just having kids. I just want to relax and just enjoy myself for a little while. And so maybe baseball and golf, these slower sports, are becoming more intriguing to me and more fun to watch. But I'll tell you this, you could not have two better teams in the College World Series this year. Both teams are dynamic. Both teams have had great pitching. Both teams have had really good bullpens. And that's what this has been in the College World Series. I'm not saying that it's the greatest product ever, but I am going to say that these kids seem to be having a blast while they're out there. It doesn't feel like the old guard of Major League Baseball. It really does feel like a bunch of people out there having fun and trying to win a game. And I know that the Aces are going to go tonight. It's going to be fantastic. I keep hearing LSU has like 3 different players that could go in the top 10, and Florida has a couple of people that could also go in the top 10 of the MLB draft this year. So this is a star-studded, a lot of talent on the field. And it's been a great atmosphere. Of course, Game 1 was an incredible game. A lot of great pitching from those pitching staffs. And, of course, the Tigers were able to not walk it off, but get the go-ahead in the top of the 11th and win. And then Florida yesterday came out and put a 24-burger on the board. I mean, but between them and the Los Angeles Angels doing that, we've seen more runs in 2 games of baseball than, the Tennessee Titans had on the field in football. It has been a lot of fun to watch this College World Series, and tonight it ends. It's going to be another great pitching duel. I know that the LSU's ace is throwing like 100 miles an hour consecutively and consistently, and so I'm going to give the edge to LSU just because of the pitcher that I know is going to be on the mound tonight. I believe he's going to be on the mound tonight. I mean, I haven't looked at it, but I assume that he'll be on the mound tonight. And this is really good. I think that NIL has done a really good thing for college athletics. It has allowed players to come back. It has allowed players to be themselves and profit, make a little bit of money off of their stardom because everyone else is. The schools, the universities are, the TV partners and ESPN are making money. And some of these players are saying, you know what, instead of going to the MLB and being drafted in the 7th round, I'm going to go back to LSU, and I'm going to play for another season, and I'm going to have a great time at the College World Series and have a really great tournament and kind of boost my profile and maybe go back to LSU next season after winning a championship. And the same thing with Florida. And so it has been a lot of fun to watch this College World Series happen. And I'm really excited to actually watch this game tonight, which if you would have told me that, I would have said that 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. But here we are, and it's going to be a good time. All right, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Logan Ward Show. Next week, I'm going to start a top 5 of each position in the NFL as we get closer to the NFL season. I'm working on some of my predictions for the NFL season already. College football, we're starting to hear a lot about college football this season and some of the camps and stuff coming out. So we are in a dead period of sports. My wife loves it, but there's still a bunch of stories out there, and we'll talk about a lot of those here in the next couple of weeks. Peace.